David Duke, top of the arc. Here's Pip, guarded by Gillespie. Steps back, spins, fires! Woo! Pip Gates!
They get another crack. They'll go to their senior. And he lays it in. Two big buckets by Alpha Diallo.
He crushed it. It's a grand slam.
Down by 3. 5 seconds. Reeves for the tie. He got it.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Dish Sports. I'm Ben Bellotti. I'm here with Robbie Cannon, and today we are actually joined with our new co-host, Matt Marasco. Matt is from Boston College. Matt, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Robbie, for having me on the show, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good time.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be awesome. Matt brings a lot to the table, huge sports guy, big involvement around Boston College sports and everything, kind of like Robbie and I are involved with PC sports, so it's going to be awesome for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So up at BC, I work for the athletic department up there in the marketing office. I do some game day production stuff as well, so some public address announcing, and I'm the head of the sports radio program up at Boston College, so I have my hand in a couple different aspects of athletics, so hopefully that I'll be able to bring something to the show.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're happy that you're joining us for sure.
Definitely.
And just in, other news, we're starting to really try and take off with the show. We've had a couple interviews. We've already released one. We've got a couple more on the horizon, and we're hoping to get more. And, we really – doesn't matter how small or how big we think anyone with a good story we're going to try and get on, because at the end of the day, it's the stories that matter, not really the person they're coming from. So like we were talking about it, we might have someone like the basketball manager. I mean, they're not physically playing on the court, but they're there watching, seeing it firsthand with interacting with guys. So they'll have stories just like that. So anything like that, we'd love to have people on. And I think we're starting to head in that direction, which is really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna have guests from all over the sports world, like Ben said, of all different statures.
Yeah,
exactly. A lot of the stories that you guys don't get to hear on a normal basis. Everybody hears from the athletes, everybody hears from the coaches, but nobody hears about the manager, like you mentioned, or the player in the minor leagues, or the talk show host, as the case may be. Never ends up on the other side of the mic. So we're definitely going to try to bring you guys some new unique perspectives on the sports world, because it's so much more than just the athletes. Maybe even some super fans, get some some people that we know that might have some interesting stories from fandom. All sorts of stuff in the works right now, so definitely stay tuned. And we have a good interview today coming up too, right, Ben?
Oh yeah, we do. Today on the show we have it's going to be a two-parter. So we got part 1 of part 2. Jake Palomaki, he's a prospect of the Tampa Bay Rays. He's from Boston College. Actually, he grew up in Georgia. Really interesting guy. He was a great guy to interview. He had a lot of interesting stuff to say. Very, very insightful stories about his time at Boston College, which we talked about a lot, and it was a lot of fun to talk about with him.
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, definitely stay tuned for that.
We have some other stuff to cover before we get there, right?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of the sports world, stuff has actually happened in the sports world, believe it or not, here in quarantine. The NFL draft just took place, and I mean, we have a lot of interesting viewpoints. It was an interesting draft. I mean, having it not in person and, over just everyone was video chatting, it was interesting to begin with. Personally, I thought they did a pretty good job with it. I thought there was a lot of weird things that happened, or, little hiccups here and there, but overall, I thought it was pretty good, well run.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought overall it was a good production. I don't think so. It wasn't as far fetched being remote. The one real big difference that I thought was obviously that the teams aren't together. Each coach is at their house.
Right.
But in terms of the players not being there and being at home, really generally only the first round picks are the ones who were there anyway. So for the most part, that's not a big difference. You see the video of the guy in his living room anyway when he's picked in the second, third round.
Right.
But yeah, no, there were a couple cool. I did like Brian Flores, the Dolphins coach. His kids, unbelievable.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite aspects of it. Whether it was Flores' kids, or I think it was Vrabel's son, who's a football player up at BC, was in the I don't even know what you would call that, like the onesie kind of suit. It was definitely cool to see, both inside the coaches' homes. Belichick's home is exactly what I pictured it to be like, just table, nothing else.
Yeah.
And also inside the homes of the prospects too. I thought that was a really interesting perspective that you don't usually get to see, and you get to see kind of more extended family too. So I thought it was definitely cool from that perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And they were definitely able to go like more in depth with stories about each guy and even talk about guys that were drafted later down the road, because normally they get backed up and everything and don't really have a chance to talk about everyone, or they're talking about someone that got drafted like 3 picks ago. So this was, they're able to do everything relatively quick and talk about everyone, which was really cool. But one thing they did when they were talking about everyone, it seems like almost every one of these players had some sort of tragedy in their life, no matter how far-fetched it was. I mean,
Yeah, no, that part that was a big part on the Twitter world. Everybody was
yeah,
tweeting about, like, did ESPN just ask him for the most tragic event that happened in life so they could put it up there?
just anything that had a little bit of tragedy made it into the cut, and it didn't matter how big or how small it was. They had to talk about it.
Yeah, it was insane too. I mean, you look at some of these tragedies. Yeah, some of them were small, but some of them were insane. There was one guy, I can't remember who it was. He was in a boating accident when he was like 8 or 9, and then his brother got struck by lightning a couple of years later. That's insane.
No, literally, yeah. So
It's not believable.
It really was. It was nuts when that one came up. Like, it was like my whole family was just kind of watching, because I don't know, like, even my mom, she's nothing better to do than to watch the draft right now anyway too, on the Thursday night. And like, we all just went silent when Trey Wingo said that. Like, it was incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
yeah,
I guess they needed to talk about something. I mean, that you're not watching them handshake Roger Goodell, so I mean, like, they need something to take up time. I guess I just thought it was a little odd that every single one had to have something. It seemed like.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, you guys want to talk about some of the I guess, specifics of the draft, some who you thought were some steals, maybe, who you liked,
yeah,
whatnot.
I mean, right off the bat, obviously everyone knows Joe Burrow. I mean, without a doubt, best pick in the draft, I think. I mean, hands down, number 1 pick, no question. So nothing really to dispute there, in my opinion. Maybe you guys want to dispute the fact that it's the best pick in the draft, but for me, hands down, Joe Burrow all the way.
All right, so I'm gonna hop in right there, right off the bat. I love Joe Burrow. He won me a decent amount of money on the national championship night. Big Joe, he's great. He's gonna be a good NFL player. But I still think, I've been saying it for a while now, I think that Tua was the best player in the draft before he got hurt, and I don't like passing up on him because of an injury. Football, anyone could get hurt at any time. Joe Burrow could. Well, he could have a season-ending injury game 1. So,
yeah,
like,
but Tua's injury prone though.
see, I don't like that thought. Drew Brees had the same idea when he was coming into the league.
That's
How
true.
did that turn out?
Yeah, that's a fair point for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the difference though with Tua, and I love Tua, I think no injuries, he's the best player in the draft by far. I think that just because it was recurring and just because there were different issues. So with Breeze, it was the shoulder, and you knew what it was going in. But Tua's had ankles, he's had quads, he had the hip surgery was obviously the big one. And it's not even, as a GM, I would mind the season-ending surgery less than the missing, a game here, 2 games there, that kind of after his freshman year really hampered his 2 years at Alabama. He was never healthy for a full season there.
Yeah.
So I wish the best for him, and I think that if he can stay healthy, he's going to be the best player to come out of this draft. But it's a gamble, especially when you have the number 1 overall pick. And Joe Burrows rewrote the record book this year. He was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tua,
go ahead, Ben.
If Tua stays healthy, I agree. He's probably going to end up better than Joe Burrow. But the fact that he's had so many injuries, like Matt was saying, is what got me. But that being said, I did expect him. I know he was projected to go 5th or 6th, but I did expect him to actually drop a little further in the draft. So I am happy that the Dolphins decided to go with him in the 5th pick.
Yeah, well, they learned their lesson with Drew Brees, like Robbie mentioned. They passed on Brees, took Culpepper, and the rest is history. And Nick Saban is now hated in Miami. So
yeah,
I think that they learned their lesson. But speaking of Tua, and guys in the draft that, we have high expectations for, I was shocked by how far Jake Fromm fell.
I wanted to talk about that. I completely agree. I didn't expect him to drop down as far as he did at all. I mean, he's a very talented quarterback, and yeah, I know he doesn't have the best arm and everything, but I mean, you see what he does on the field. It's nothing like terrible at all. I mean, I wanted the Patriots to take him.
I think I wanted the Patriots to take him. I thought we could get him I wanted to get him in the third round. For the whole draft, I wanted to get him because when you look at it, going into this year, it was going to be Tua Fromm. That was the debate. Who was going to be number one overall? Obviously, Joe Burrows comes out of nowhere. Fromm, he didn't have a great season. That's fine. All his wide receivers were hurt, and the thing was his efficiency didn't really go down. His yards per pass went down, and his touchdowns went down. But he was still very efficient. He still didn't turn the ball over. He's still a great leader. I think has the potential to be. I said before the draft, and I'm going to stick with it. If he gets a shot in the NFL, I think he's going to be one of the 3 best quarterbacks in this draft. I think he's better than Herbert. I think he's better than Love. I think he's better than Eason. His game fits the NFL better. I would have loved him to go to New England. I think he fits in with the Patriot-style offense perfectly.
Yeah, I thought it was a great fit for sure. I don't know if he would have been top 3, but he definitely, in my mind, was what the Patriots would be looking for. Even if he doesn't play, if he's not the starter for the full season this year, I still think he would have been a great fit.
All right, let me hop in here quick. So I mean, college football is not my it's not my. I like the NFL more than college football, but I mean, of course, Saturday afternoon I'll throw on a game, and my team is UGA. They're the team I rock with, right. Dating back to Todd Gurley, and so obviously I was pulling for Fromm all year. I mean, I followed all their games, and as an NFL prospect, as the year went on, I just kept getting less and less. As a college QB, he was great. But his turnover issues could be a problem. He had a really good outline in front of him. His protection was never an issue for him. So I don't know. I hope he gets a chance. I think that, again, like you guys said, he's got all the talent in the world. But we'll see. Actually, I hope that we'll get to see whether or not he can pan out. But yeah, I mean, low floor, high ceiling. He could go either way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think watching him for his first 2 years after he took the job from Eason, I think that speaks volumes. And he held on to it, and he was very, very good. And I think that, obviously his production drops. Joe Burrow comes out of nowhere. It definitely hurt him. But I think something else that is overlooked is the fact that he was playing in the SEC. And he's playing against the best competition that college football has to offer, bar none. So you look at a guy like Herbert. Yeah, Herbert put up insane numbers, but he was playing in the Pac-12. He's not going up against the best defenses that they have to offer. He's not facing the best pass rush. He's not throwing into the best secondaries. He's not reading the best linebackers. That's what Jake Fromm did for 3 years at Georgia. And I think that's part of what will help his game translate better to the NFL is he's used to that very, very high level of competition. Not to say that the Pac-12 isn't high level of competition, but it's not at the same level as the SEC.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right there. And I think it does say a lot too about him that he held off Justin Fields, who was the number 1 recruit out of high school and went to Georgia.
It forced him to transfer, right?
Right, yeah, he transferred to Ohio State, had a huge year, and he'll probably, as of right now, he's probably the second QB on the big board. Probably the second Heisman favorite after Trevor Lawrence for next year. So yeah, I mean that there's no debate in that he was a big time college QB with the potential to be an NFL starter for sure.
Yeah, and in a pro style loss too, which I think is something.
Yeah, but yeah, then I mean elsewhere in the draft there were, in the top 5 there were the two defensive guys from Ohio State. I love both of them, Chase Young and Jeff Okudah. I think he's my dark horse for defensive rookie of the year. Everyone else is looking at the guys who are going to get the sacks. I think that he's going to be a really good corner for the Lions.
Yeah, I'd say you're right on track with that one. So, what about the Eagles, man? Taking Jalen Hurts, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they were getting a lot of hate for it. Honestly, I don't hate it that much. Is it an odd move? Yeah. But, I mean, it's not completely out of the world, right? I mean, Carson Wentz is kind of injury prone. He's had a recent track record of the backup coming in and playing over him with Nick Foles. I mean, Jalen Hurts, Carson Wentz is completely serviceable and a great quarterback, but I really don't see a huge issue with them taking Jalen Hurts.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think that it's Doug Peterson's one of the most creative coaches in the league. So I think that's one a good fit for Hurts. But two, well, I saw the day after the draft that they actually had plans of using them both on the field at the same time, which Jalen Hurts does have a little Taysom Hill in him. I don't think that he can be as much of a utility player, but he does. You could throw him at the tailback or whatever, even that tight end where he'll just go out for a pass. And then obviously he could be a good backup quarterback for Wentz in case anything does happen to him.
Yeah, for sure.
I couldn't agree more. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that his game doesn't translate super well as a quarterback only to the NFL, but I think the Taysom Hill comparison is spot on. Speaking of teams that took quarterbacks that surprised everybody, how about Green Bay? That came out of nowhere. I was shocked by that. And I don't think that's, love what Green Bay did in the second round, drafting my guy AJ, but I think that that first round pick just kind of baffled me. As a team that was in the NFC Championship, you're one or two weapons away on offense, or plugging up one or two holes on defense away from being in the Super Bowl. Why not go put another weapon around Aaron Rodgers that's going to help him you're in win now mode with him. He has 4 years left on his deal. He's getting up there in age. Go give him another guy to throw to.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that one. I mean, that was super odd. I completely agree that, they have every opportunity they can if they add another guy to go out there and compete for a Super Bowl title. I mean, I don't see it. That move baffled me. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, we're all in agreement there with one of the deepest wide receiver classes in the history of the draft. It's incredible that they would go for a QB instead of giving Rodgers another target, which he does need. He does need another guy to throw to, and you can't pay Rodgers that much money, which he's getting just an absurd amount of money to draft another QB that Rodgers is going to get ready for the future. I don't love it. I know their thought is that Rodgers will be to love what Favre was to Rodgers, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. Rodgers is a different guy than Favre was. And I think you hit the nail on the head, too. It's a very deep, one of the deepest wide receiver classes ever. You look at a guy like T. Higgins, who any other year would be a first-round pick, maybe the first wide receiver off the board. And this year he's fallen, to the second, third round? And you have guys like CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy. I mean, this is probably the best wide receiver class since Odell Beckham's class a few years back.
Yeah.
Because that was another very, very deep wide receiver class. But, I mean, there were just so many options out there and so many guys that can hurt you in a variety of ways that I was shocked that they didn't go out and get one of these top-end wide receivers there.
Yeah. You guys want to talk a little bit about the Pats draft?
Yeah. I know, again, I always seem to be going against everyone. I mean, I got mixed reviews off of like the Twitter world and everything off of the Patriots' first pick. Obviously, they trade away, which I like the move of trading away the first pick. I like that for more second round and third round picks. I like that move by Belichick. It did surprise me. I thought for sure they were going to pick someone in the first round, especially with the news of Brady leaving and now Gronk joining him, which obviously we didn't have Gronk anyway, but still, I'd expected them to pick in the first round, but I'm kind of glad, Belichick made that move and got more pieces all together. But the pick of the safety in the second round, I know there's a lot of controversy. Like, it's not something we need. There's so many other, like you said, there's a ton of wide receivers. We could use someone like that, maybe a lineman. But I like the pick of the safety, and especially who we got. He's a very versatile guy. They were talking about him playing a ton of other positions. So I don't hate the move at all for the first pick by the Patriots.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's, how do you say it? Duggar, whichever way you say it.
Yeah.
He, well, obviously being a D2 player, it's very unique for a D2 player to be drafted as high as he was. So that says a lot about him and his potential. But
It's like
yeah,
the
no,
most
I mean,
Belichick move ever.
oh yeah. So it's like I knew the second that I saw that come across the screen, I was like, oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna act like I know that much about Kyle Duggar here. Like he played D2 ball down in North Carolina. I mean, obviously, you could do some research on him, but I think that he's got all the potential based on what Belichick said after the draft. He's athletic and he's smart, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw we traded down, I thought we were going to draft Kmet out of the tight end out of Notre Dame, which would have made a ton of sense. We need
I like
help
him a
at
lot.
tight end.
Yep.
And then whenever we drafted a safety, I was so mad. I was so mad, one, staying up the first night, waiting to pick. We don't pick. And
Yeah.
then Xavier McKinney was still on the board. He's a much better safety than Duggar. Or I shouldn't say that. But I think the fact that he played at Alabama, he's going to be more NFL ready than
Much
Duggar.
safer, I agree.
Exactly. It's a safer pick. And then, I don't know. I was just frustrated. We didn't solve the QB issue. We didn't draft a tight end until pick 91 with Devin.
I do like him though out of UCLA. I do like him as a tight end out of UCLA. But like you said, Kmet from Notre Dame, I liked him a lot more.
Yeah. And, I love the pick at 87, Anthony Jennings out of Alabama. Again, big SEC guy. I'm a big Alabama guy. And before I get all the comments or whatever, I was an Alabama guy before Nick Saban ever won a national championship there. But I love Anthony Jennings. I think he's going to be a plug-and-play guy right away. I think he gets it. He's the brain of that defense. He's the central nervous system of that defense at Alabama. So you have to be able to understand concepts to do that. I like shoring up the defense. Again, you get the two linebackers because you have Josh Uche out of Michigan at pick 60. So you're trying to replace guys like Jamie Collins that left. But again, how confident are you guys going into the year with Jarrett Stidham as your starting quarterback?
Going
Ben, you
into
go
the
first.
going into the draft, I wasn't that confident in him. And then you see the quotes saying that the Patriots want to add another QB either via free agency or the draft. And they don't do it in the draft. So, I agreed that I thought they were going to pick a QB and try and solve part of that issue. But the fact that they didn't, I mean, I know that they're saying it wasn't exactly the plan not to draft a QB, but I think that really shows how much confidence Belichick has in Stidham. And he's really said a lot about him that makes me think that this is his guy and this is who he's going to go with. And I mean, I don't know. It wouldn't be complete nonsense if he just went out there and had a pretty good season. I mean, that's kind of just what Patriot quarterbacks do. But
yeah. So I like Stidham a lot more than most. And again, that's nothing that he's done in his time with the Pats. Obviously, I liked him going all the way back to his days at Auburn. I thought that he was a really good NFL prospect. And I was wicked happy when we got him behind Brady. But also, I wouldn't be surprised if we go after Newton in free agency. He's still out there. Jameis just got signed by the Saints, but I wouldn't be surprised if we went after Newton as a potential starter. I think that Bill is willing to kind of change his ways and get a QB who's mobile.
Yeah, at first when they were talking about wanting to trade Cam Newton and then they just, he's going to be a free agent now, I was really open to the idea of having him, and I pretty much still am. But the more I think about it, the more I just don't think for the team physically it makes sense. But for like the Belichick, the Patriot way, it really doesn't make sense in that form, especially, he's a huge personality guy. And I think Belichick's trying to kind of get away from that, cutting Josh Gordon. And then they had obviously the Antonio Brown, all that stuff. I don't think Robert Kraft is going to be as willing as some other owners to spend the money on a guy like Cam Newton he's not outrageously huge personality, but compared to what we have now, he is. So that's the only thing that I would be hesitant to say that he's not going to be a Patriot. But I mean, they've done it in the past, get huge guys, so I don't see why it's out of the question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
I don't
for
think it's
sure.
out of the question. I'm not super excited about it though. Cam Newton hasn't been good in a couple of years. He's gonna be a distraction, and again, this is just me having grown up watching Tom Brady. I have a bias for pocket passers as opposed to mobile quarterbacks. And, I'm concerned about guys getting hurt. And that's why, look at guys like Teddy Bridgewater, like, a Johnny Manziel type player. And I know Johnny Manziel had other issues going on there too, but even Robert Griffin III, guys like that have a tendency to get hurt, you know, and the quarterback is so central. If they're taking all the first team snaps and then he goes down, that's such a huge drop off to the next guy, if for no other reason than that guy hasn't practiced at all. And that's something that I've seen a lot at Boston College, where we've had a guy who he's not a run first quarterback, but he's definitely mobile and his legs are definitely a weapon. And he got hurt my freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Freshman year, torn ACL. He comes back, gets hurt in the Clemson game my sophomore year. He had a season-ending injury this year, and now he's transferring out of the program, and he's going to Oregon. So I think that there's something to be said for, when you're a franchise player, sit back and allow the guys to protect you and sit back there and throw the ball. And, sometimes you have to make business decisions. And that's something that I think that Cam, he's gotten dinged up over the years. There's no question about it. So it'll be interesting to see as he's getting older and how effective he still is as a runner, if he's going to have to kind of transition his game a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and when I think of quarterbacks, the first guys that come to my mind are Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers, all guys that just sit back there and just chuck it. And I mean, they come to my mind because they're the best quarterbacks out there for the most part. I mean, obviously Lamar Jackson had a monster season, but I just feel like there's more of a chance that teams are going to figure out like the strategies that he uses, the plays he uses a lot faster. I mean, it's a lot easier to go defend against a guy like Lamar Jackson than a pocket passer, in my opinion. So
Yeah. Before we transition over to baseball, I'll give my refute to those 2 points that you guys made. So I think I was exactly in your guys' boat where I love the pocket passer, Brady, Breeze. I mean those are probably the 2 guys that I respect most in the NFL. But over the past couple of years, that bubble has kind of been burst for me. It started with Newton in the pretty much a whole introduction of the RPO, the run pass option with the QB. And Newton won an MVP, brought him to a Super Bowl. Then you have Mahomes come in, and then Lamar last year. So the last 2 MVPs and Mahomes won the Super Bowl this year have been mobile quarterbacks. And I think it's just the way that the game is trending. And I'm not opposed to having one in New England.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that that's definitely the way the game looks like it's trending right now. But we'll see. I mean, those guys are all so young that you just mentioned, right? We'll see if Lamar Jackson can string together, 5, 6, 7-year career. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the quarterback position in a franchise quarterback, they don't come around, every 2 or 3 years. You really have to take advantage of them when you have them. And if these guys, say Lamar Jackson gets hurt next year, that's something that could kind of alter teams' opinions of it. And again, he didn't win in the playoffs. He hasn't won in the playoffs the last 2 years. So I think that there's, even that aspect of it when it comes time for playoffs, can you deliver with that style? And no mobile quarterback has really won a Super Bowl. I mean, yes, I guess you could say that Mahomes is a mobile quarterback, but when I look at him, he's also an insane arm talent. And a lot more of the damage that he does with his mobility is avoiding the rush, getting outside the pocket, and still throwing downfield. Not using his leg. He can use his legs to gain yards, but he also is smart and is able to make those business decisions. I'm going to throw this ball away. I'm out of the pocket instead of trying to grab 5 yards and getting crushed and risking the rest of my season. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, though. I mean,
yeah, I agree with you there.
yeah, it will definitely be interesting to see what happens. I mean, Belichick recently just seems to surprise me left and right. So I really have no idea what the future holds for the Patriots, especially with the QB position. But as of right now, I think Stidham's the guy that we're going to have to go with. And before we move on to baseball talk, real quick, I need to talk about how awkward Roger Goodell is. I mean, come on. I mean, you'll see him sitting in his chair, like trying to act comfortable without like being comfortable at all. Just eating M&Ms, he's making TikToks with, video chats and stuff. I mean, what a weird guy. I mean, I just every time I look at him, I just cringe. And obviously everyone hates him, and I hate him too. But like, this just made me feel bad for him. Like, this dude can't have any friends. I mean, he's a weirdo. But yeah.
No, it's brutal. I mean, yeah, I look at him on the screen, and he's literally like, yeah, he comes out for the first pick, and he looks at his TV screen with all like the fans on Zoom or whatever, and he's like, "Come on, guys, boo me!" I literally like put my hands into my face and just almost turned the TV off right then and there.
What makes it fun is like in person booing him because you actually like hate him, and not just because what has happened, not just because that's what you do. It's because you actually want to boo him. I feel like he called up like the most eager fans to be on TV and was like, "Hey, you can be on TV as long as you carry the tradition, and it's gonna be a funny thing. You don't actually want to boo me, right?" Like that's how I feel like that went down.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I heard, I think it was on KFC radio, I heard him ask a question. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was. They said, would you switch places with Roger Goodell? And you would get Roger Goodell money, but you'd also have Roger Goodell's personality.
100% no.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, he's just a brutal personality, but he makes a lot of money, so good for him, I guess. He figured something out.
He must have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's going to wrap it up for the football talk. So on a less happy note, I guess, the Cape Cod League Collegiate Summer Ball, for the first time since 1946, there will be no summer ball played in Cape Cod. This is a huge hit to the baseball world. Everyone loves the Cape Cod League. It's something, I mean, if you get invited to play in the Cape Cod League, you're basically guaranteed to be drafted, which is awesome for players. It's free games to go watch for fans. The fans in Cape Cod love it. People travel from outside of Massachusetts to go watch. And I mean, you saw it coming, but it's really sad to see that they're not going to be playing. I mean, that's a lot of guys that don't get an opportunity to showcase their skills. And I mean, the guys that go there are obviously tremendously talented and have a ton of skills, but I mean, it's just that extra level of going there and just showing, you're in college, you're against the elite, but in Cape Cod, it's the elite of the elite, not including the, minor and MLB guys. So it's really missing out a chance for players to showcase their talents in a year that they really have to, with the draft going from basically endless rounds to only 5 rounds. So it's pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it from the perspective of guys showing off their talents, and especially now losing your collegiate season.
Mm-hmm.
Now you lose summer ball on top of that. From a developmental standpoint,
yeah,
this is a huge hit. And I don't know, I think this probably plays very well into the hands of international free agents because they're still playing, wherever they may be. A lot of them are still able to go to the ballpark, still able to play, still able to continue to develop and sharpen their skills, whereas these college athletes now, they're going to come back and you can do whatever you want at home. I mean, you can lift, you can run, you can do whatever. It's not the same as playing in games. It's just not. You're going to get, you're going to go see your first live at bat, and, the fastball is going to look like it has a little bit more jump to it. The breaking balls is going to look like it has a little more cut to it. Ground balls are going to be coming at you a little bit harder. So it's just tough from a developmental perspective. And talking to our former teammate Mason, a couple of years ago, after he had played in the Cape Cod League, he talked about how much he had learned there.
Oh yeah.
And, just picking the brains of these great baseball minds, one, that are coaching there, and two, all the other players that, they pick up knowledge from their college coaches. And, it allows players to really, one, create community, and two, learn so much about the game and learn from each other that's all going to be lost now without that season.
Yeah. And I mean, you said it great right there with learning experience and everything. And the Cape Cod is the best of the best. So if they're shutting down, you have to only expect that means the NECBL is going to shut down, the Alaskan League, all these other collegiate summer ball teams. There's no way that they're going to operate if the best of the best, the Cape Cod League, can't. So that just, everything we just said for the Cape Cod League applies to every other collegiate summer league. And I mean, above all, it's the learning experience and just the experience these guys get. But I mean, I completely agree, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen on the developmental side of this. Even in the MLB, I mean, like, are they going to come back? Everyone's either going to be throwing like 5 miles slower or 5 miles faster because all they've been doing is throwing. And the batters are either going to rake or absolutely just, get stuff blown by them. I have no idea what's going to happen when baseball happens again.
Yeah. It's anybody's guess.
Why don't we head in and get into our interview with Jake Palomaki? So, like I said, Jake Palomaki is from the Tampa Bay Rays organization. He played at Boston College, was a very productive player with Boston College. He's an animal on the field. He says so himself. And he's a grinder. He's pretty much when you think of baseball player, this is the guy you think of. He's a grinder out there. He's going to get on base. He's going to do stuff for the team. He's a fighter for your team. It was a great interview, so I hope you enjoy it.
And we are joined by a very special guest, Jake Palomaki, who was drafted in the 18th round by the Tampa Bay Rays, former Boston College 4-year starter. He had a very impressive career at Boston College, including a trip to the Super Regionals, and he also played in the NECBL and the Cape Cod League. Jake, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Good, thanks for asking.
Yeah, so just off, Benny mentioned your trip to the Super Regionals on what probably was the best baseball team that BC ever fielded. Can you kind of describe that process and kind of the Cinderella story of making it through the regionals and making it to a winner-take-all game in Coral Gables?
Yeah, that was a special year, special team. We had a lot of good draft picks off that team. I think I looked at it the other day. I think we had 11 or 12 guys who are playing currently on that one team. So that was a stacked team we had. It was crazy. I mean, we went in, I think halfway through the season, we started out really hot. We were like 12-2, about to be ranked in the top 25. And then we kind of went on a skid of about a 2-week window where we couldn't really put anything together. And then we got to the end. I think there were 6 weekends left, and we were kind of out of it. People were writing us off and thinking we were just going to kind of fade away like the past teams had done. And I think we had to win every series in the last 6 weekends in a row, and we ended up doing it, taking it all the way down to the final series against Georgia Tech. We lose a Friday night game by 4-3, and then the Saturday game gets postponed, so we had a doubleheader Sunday, and had to win both those games to go to the ACC tournament to even have a shot to get into a regional. We end up winning both those games and going to the ACC tournament, where we lost the play-in game against Georgia Tech as well. So that whole experience was crazy. We barely snuck in. I think there was 10 or 11 teams to go to the regionals from the ACC in that 1 year. So that was nuts. And then sneak in and kind of made some noise in the regional at Ole Miss, and snuck into a Miami Super and kind of gave them all they could handle.
Definitely. I watched some of the highlights from that series and just from that season in general, and it definitely seemed like you guys definitely had it clicking at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Going back, though, you mentioned that you guys started off hot. What was kind of the expectations going into that season? Were you guys expecting to make a run like this and be competitive on the national stage, or did this kind of come out of nowhere and the guys just gelled and everything just kind of clicked?
Yeah, we always expect to win, even on the teams that were kind of unsuccessful at BC. We always came in thinking we were going to be a top 25 team the whole year, and fortunate we were able to get off to a hot start and get rolling right off the bat, and gave everybody some confidence that knowing we could compete in the ACC and compete with all those big dogs up top. So ever since we started out hot that year, we were like, all right, we got a chance here. So that was the expectation all the way through, and we knew once we get into May, when weather starts warming up and we can start playing at home, we were going to roll. It was just whether or not staying above water until that could happen.
Yeah, let me just say, I mean, us being New England guys, I mean, you hear all the time what a great program BC has for baseball. And I mean, you guys made history that year, and I mean, just loosely following it that season, and then all of a sudden it was just like you guys were everywhere, and it was like this team is like this, like almost like dream team type of thing. Like you don't know how far they can go or what can happen, and it was just an amazing experience to watch, and something I'm sure you are so proud to be a part of.
Yeah, that was one of the best moments I have in all of baseball. I think it was awesome going down to Ole Miss and playing in front of so many people, and all of a sudden you're in the championship game with a couple innings to go, and we're about to go to a super regional 2 wins away from Omaha. I mean, nobody thought we were going to do it at all 6 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. So it was awesome to shock everybody and show them we could do it.
That is awesome. There's nothing like that coming out of nowhere to shock the world.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, because for a team to make a run like that, there has to be some team chemistry. The guys have to get along. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like in the locker room with that team? You know, what the team dynamics were, whether it was a loose group of guys or it was very, you know, business first. Just kind of what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, we had captains Joe Cronin and Nick Sorrentino were the guys leading the charge that year. And I think it was them who started it out right away with the relationship they had with Coach Gambino and how open they were to going to talk to him about anything the team wanted and anything that he wanted. So we had kind of an open communication, and we're like, hey, man, our legs are dragging today, need a lighter day, or let's get after it this week. Everybody feels good. To off the field, hanging out a bunch. We were so tight, all 1 through 35 there. Everybody got along, was so closely knit. I've never been part of a team that was that tight in the 4 years I was there. That was the highlight of it. And then our arms just carried us that whole time. You knew what you were going to get from Justin Dunn, Michael King, and Jake Stevens every time they went out there. So for us, and on the offense, knowing we only had to put up 2, 3, 4 runs a game, and we had a chance to win every game, that was it was a whole new bond we had, because the pitchers were fighting for our hitters and our hitters were fighting for our pitchers. Kind of a great gel we had together, knowing everybody's got each other's back, and we were going out there fighting and win every baseball game we could.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, no matter what sport, it helps to have guys that mesh like that. So it definitely
awesome.
Makes a huge difference. So
yeah, that carried us down the stretch when we were I don't know if we're going to go downhill or go uphill here. Those guys were like, all right, let's go. We're about to strap it in for 6 weeks and make it go on a run. And that was no one was going to accept anything less than that the whole time, in the locker room, on the field, whoever showed up to the field, that's what was going to happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Game 3 against Miami. First of all, I watched that. Should have never even happened. The 2-2 pitch should have been strike 3.
Yeah.
That was the breaking pitch. It caught the top of the zone. But then obviously everything that happens after that, Michelangelo had a bad game the day before. Big bat flip. He had done it in the ACC tournament against, I think, either Virginia or NC State. And
NC State, I believe.
Yeah, NC State. And we were going to do kind of a breakdown with the video and kind of ask you where you were in the fight. But then we watched the video again. You were one of the first guys in there.
Very, very clear where you were.
I was right in the mix. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you just talk a little bit about that, what you saw from, I believe you were at shortstop at that point, and kind of what you saw and how that developed?
Yeah, so I think the year before we had some bad blood. I don't know. There was a lot of chirping going on back and forth. Heat of the moment, obviously, everything's on the line. Everybody wants to go to Omaha. That's the only thing you're thinking about. So I think it was a grand slam. So it was 5-4 at the time. 3-2 pitch, throws a changeup, it hangs, and he hits it out. I'm not going to go into detail about speculation whether they were stealing signs or whatever, but I don't know how you're sitting 3-2 changeup there as a guy who's hitting, I don't know, in the 9 hole. So that was kind of sketchy, but I mean, guy put a good swing on it and wanted to show everybody what he's got and try to make little bit of a bang, as Miami kind of typically always did. So he bat flipped. I'm looking. I watch the ball go out. I look over at third base. Joe Cronin's kind of in a crouch. I'm like, dang, like this is probably it. Like I think that was the 8th inning. Look over. Mitch Bigris is a big, tall Canadian guy at first base. He's chirping the guys. He's coming around first base. Johnny Adams obviously didn't say anything. He was at shortstop, so I was at second base. So I was a little bit closer to the action over at the first base line. And then I watch as everything unfolds, and Nick Sorrentino kind of is letting him have it as he's coming through home plate. And I was like, something's about to happen here. And people are chirping. Next thing you know, Bigris is over in the mix at first base, chirping all their coaching staff and all the guys in the dugout. And I was like, I got to get in there. So I full on dead sprint from second base and try to get in the middle as fast as I possibly could. And I kind of blacked out of that moment. Don't really know what I said. Don't really know what happened. And all of a sudden I'm being pulled back by Cronin trying to bring me back off the pile. So I don't know. There was a lot going on there, a lot of emotions, a lot of disappointment at the time. Can't believe that happened because I thought for sure we were coming back and win that game. But no, it was crazy. Something I'll never forget as well. So it was, I don't know how I reacted really, but I don't think it was too terrible.
No, I mean, it was definitely, it was fun to watch. I mean, like baseball and brawls, it's something that, doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, like everyone's glued to it. And then seeing you just bolt into it, it was like, wow, you can tell, one, this guy like is fighting for something, and two, like, it goes back to what you were saying, like this team's so tight knit, like obviously the whole team goes down, but you weren't really affected by anything directly, and you're just right in there fighting. So
yeah,
I mean, not fighting, but like ready if you had to.
Yeah. And that's how the whole team was built that year. Everybody was going to have each other's back. Everybody was going to be in on a fight anytime needed, say whatever they needed to say, and keep grinding as long as they could. So, I mean, that shows the culture of that team right off the bat. So yeah, it was crazy.
So I messed up there. You were at second base, not shortstop,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe you moved to shortstop later on in your career, which is kind of the opposite of what everybody else does in baseball. You usually move from the left up to the right side. So can you talk a little bit about that transition and going from playing second base to being the general infield?
Yeah, so freshman year I played third base just because kind of injuries occurred and there was nowhere for me to really play because Johnny Adams was at short and Blake Butera was at second base, and there was kind of no room in the infield. So our center fielder went down. I went to third our third baseman went to first baseman went to center. And so I ended up playing third base my freshman year, second base my next 2 years because Johnny Adams wasn't going anywhere. He was going to play shortstop because he was a staple there. So I think I could have played short my sophomore and junior year, but there was no need because Johnny was there. So I just kind of perfected a craft at second base and was going to be locked down at second base until my name was called to move over to the left side of the infield again. But it was awesome. I love second base, but shortstop was great, being able to get a chance to play there in college and show everybody I can still play there, even though I've been profiled as second base in a lot of my career. So that was hugely helpful to my draft stock as well, showing the scouts that I could still play on the left side of the infield and police the whole infield and be the guy that was a staple over there. So that was awesome for me. It really wasn't a huge adjustment because Coach Gambino does a great job in the fall, having everybody play second, having everybody play short, having everybody play third, so that when your name is called upon to move wherever based on injuries or need, you can just pop over there and you're ready to go.
Yeah. Jake, you mentioned how much that affected your draft stock. One thing I noticed, like it's pretty much the first thing you see when you look at your profile on Boston College, is one, your on base percentage. You hold records there for in Boston College for on base and for in season walks. And then, I mean, speaking to I know we talked about before we started, but our buddy Tim, who you were was hosted by, and the NECBL, he says, you're just the classic grinder and like the guy that goes out there, he has discipline eye and just gets on base any way possible. How much did stuff like that impact your draft stock, you feel like?
Yeah, that was huge. Being able to, even if I'm going through a little bit of a skid, to be able to work my way on base regardless of how I'm swinging it at the time. I think that was huge for me because if I go into too big of a hole, there's no getting out of it sometimes, as you guys can see. But that was such a staple for me, being able to find my way on base, whether it's a walk or whatnot, for me to keep my confidence and know that I can get on base and score runs without having to get a hit. So, I mean, I know a lot of the time freshman year, I was kind of shocked when I was walking so much. I was like, why am I walking so much? I don't know. And I guess it was because the strike zone shrunk a little bit from high school to college, and I didn't really know about it until I got there. So that was just kind of a staple for me. And in fact, it affected my draft stock huge because they knew I was going to get on base at all levels. No matter what I had to do, I was going to figure it out, whether it's swinging it or taking the full pitch walk, whatever it need be.
Yeah, I mean, like I see here, your freshman year, your on base percentage was over 400. I mean, that rarely happens at all, and that was consistent throughout your entire time at BC, and then high 300s in the minors and Cape Cod and NECBL. So I mean, that's something that you've taken with you, and I mean, just thinking like, you know, you see Moneyball, Billy Beane. That's something Billy Beane would love.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 5'9", $175. I'm not going to drive balls out of the park. I got to figure out other ways to get on base and score runs and let the big boppers behind me drive me in. So I think it was crucial for me to know my role right off the bat. Because freshman year, I just kind of went out and played my butt off and did whatever I could to, you know, help the team win. And next thing I look up and I'm hitting 290 with over 400 on base percentage, setting a single season walk record. Like, I didn't really think about it at the time. I was just putting my head down and going to work and trying to win ball games.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the transition from high school ball to college ball, but that was also a big transition geographically for you, growing up in Kennesaw, moving up to the Northeast. A couple questions, but first, how was your recruitment process, and how did you kind of end up making such a big jump up to Boston College?
Yeah, so my high school coach had a connection with a mutual friend of Coach Gambino, and Gambino told him if he ever saw a potential prospect down south to let him know, and that mutual connection let him know, and let me know too. So I reached out to him, and we started our kind of conversation through that. And he came down and watched me play. I think it was my 16U summer ball, and 2, 3, 4 weeks, I think he came and saw me play. And I think in those 3 weeks or whatever, I hit like 750 and absolutely played the best baseball of my life. Like, it all worked out perfectly, and he knew what he was getting every time I rolled out to the field. So it was a big blessing to be able to play well in front of him. But I mean, it was more than just playing well, because I was flying in and out of the dugout. I was playing in 100-degree heat. It didn't really matter what was going on. He saw me play third, short, second, and I was able to establish a good kind of viewpoint for him, and he could trust what I could do. And from then on, it was kind of as all the recruiting processes go. I went up for an official visit, and got an offer, and a couple weeks later, I committed.
Awesome. So what, kind of along the same lines, what was kind of the biggest adjustment for you moving, whether it was just going to college in general or, adjusting to life in the Northeast, to the snow, anything like that? What were some things that kind of stuck out? Any funny stories or anything like that?
So I actually was born in Michigan, and I moved to Georgia when I was 11. So I had experiences with the snow before, so I wasn't a complete stranger, complete Southern boy going up there, getting blindsided by it all. I kind of knew what I was going to get into, so that didn't really scare me too much. But I think my freshman year, going into classes at Boston College, as you know, are no joke, and having to prioritize my time between that and baseball was the toughest part. But I think my freshman spring semester, every Sunday night we got 24 inches of snow, or 20 plus inches of snow, for 5 weeks in a row. So we had over 100 inches of snow right off the bat, and I didn't go to my Monday class for 5 weeks in a row. And so it was crazy. Like that kind of, whether you're used to the snow or not, that kind of hit me out of nowhere. I was like, dang, like, is this what it's going to be like this whole spring? And I don't know if we played a home game until May that year, so it was just a grind, kind of a wake up call. Like, dang, I kind of miss the South right now, but it was all good, and it was all worth it. But yeah, it was fine. No really funny stories other than the 100+ inches of snow right off the bat.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Were you upper or Newton?
Upper.
Nice.
Yeah, they make sure all the athletes get on upper so they can get to morning lifts, because if you're on Newton, you can't get a bus that early to get to lift, and you don't make it. So.
Gotcha.
Jake, so growing up, did you play any other sports? And if so, when did you know that baseball was the one?
So I played hockey until I was about 13 or 14. And I never really played it competitively. I was always skating around, kind of fiddling with it, seeing if it was something I wanted to do. But then I moved south, and I was like, there's no shot for hockey anymore. So I was like, all right, I'm going to play baseball and basketball. And then sophomore year of high school, I was like, basketball ain't my thing. I'm short, white guy, can't really shoot it. So I'm like, I'm just going to go baseball. And from then on, it was just baseball from there on out, and nothing I really loved. I do wish I kind of played football growing up. But I mean, I can easy to say now when there's no fear of getting hurt or anything, but no, pretty much all baseball all the way through.
And then so my other question is, you mentioned that you guys are a pretty tight knit team at BC. Who was the funniest dude on the team, and do you have any good stories about traveling down with him or anything like that?
Funniest guy in all my 4 years?
Yeah.
Or there's a couple guys. Bobby Skogsberg's probably one of the funniest guys I know to this day. He was, I think he graduated a year before me, righty reliever. I don't know if there's any funny stories about him, but Mitch Bigris is another clown that was always in the middle of everything. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I know Mitch Bigris, he took a Snapchat in the middle of a locker room when he was like butt ass naked, and he ended up posting it somewhere and got suspended on the team for a couple weeks because he's just an idiot like that. So he didn't really have any care in the world. He was always just trying to get a laugh out of the guys next to him. But he's a funny guy. We had a bunch of funny cats on that team. But no, I don't think any good stories, at least none I can share right now.
So, obviously we noticed you played in the NECBL with the Waves, and Matt and I have both worked with the Waves and, gone to a bunch of different NECBL or Cape Cod League games. So, working with the Waves, especially me last year, I was pretty close working with the team. You get a sense of what it's all about, what the guys are all about, and it's a very loose-knit group, and it kind of has been since the Waves were created. They've always been one of the looser teams in the NECBL. So how was that experience? What was the team atmosphere like, and how did that compare to your teams in college?
Yeah, that was very similar to teams in college. I actually played with one of my best friends from travel ball in Kennesaw, Griffin Helms. He was out of Kennesaw State, and we lived together that summer with the Joyce family, which was awesome because they were so laid back, so chill. Tim was awesome, and Kathy and Vinny are great too. And then we had a bunch of good dudes from Southern Mississippi on that team that really gelled well. We were always goofing around. We had Richard Lovelady. He was a left-handed pitcher, now in the bigs with the Royals. He was funny. So they were always ready to compete, ready to grind, but kept it so loose through that whole summer. So that was a lot of fun. There was great guys throughout that whole team. Can't really say good enough things about all the staff and managers and GM. They were all awesome.
What was your favorite off-day activity while being in Rhode Island?
We went to Narragansett a couple times. That was fun. Anytime we went to Newport, that was a blast too. As you know, there's nothing to do in Wakefield really, so we got out to Newport and kind of explored over there. That was a blast going on look at all the mansions and stuff out there. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful over there.
Yeah.
So
Jake, go ahead, Matt.
no, all you.
All right, so Jake, on obviously after BC you get drafted. What was draft day like for you? Were you sitting around the phone, or how did you find out?
So my agent was telling me the whole time, he's like, you're going to go 6 through 10. Like, it's a lock. Like, there's 30 teams have called about you. You're going to go. You're going to be a senior sign. Some teams want to take you for way higher than slot because you got hurt your junior year, so you're not really a total senior sign. You kind of got gypped out of some money your junior year, so you're going to go 6 through 10. It's a lock. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, so day 2 comes around, and I'm sitting there by the phone waiting. Don't I think day 2 is 3 through 10, and I mean I was sitting there 5, 6, 7 waiting, and I was like, this sucks. Like, there was family around, and I was trying to keep it together in the living room. I was like, this is horrible. Like, I was sitting by the computer, sitting by the phone, kind of watching it on MLB Network any way I could, and then so I don't hear a thing till the 10th round, and it's like there's like 3 picks left in the 10th round. My agent calls me. He goes, Dodgers just called about you, last pick of the 10th round. They might take you here. And so I was like, all right, cool. Ended up not taking me. They went with Deacon Lippett out of Florida instead, gave him like $1,000. And I was like, all right, like, that was brutal. So next day, it just flies by. So it was 11, and I got a ton of calls the night before saying day 3, they're like, can't believe you're still on the board. We're going to take you here. Rockies, Twins, Cubs, a bunch of people call me, and I was like, all right, like, cool. I'm sure I'll go top 3 rounds here. Waiting around, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm like, dude, this sucks. So I went up to my room. I was like, I'm going to play some PS4. I think I hopped on the MLB The Show. I was like, I'm getting away. Walk upstairs. I think it was like the 17th round goes by, go downstairs to get a drink, and then I see my name pop up on the Twitter, 18th round. Didn't get a call. I got a text from my agent. He's like, there you go. And I was like, oh, geez, like, it happens like that. I thought somebody was going to call me. I thought I was going to get a little heads up like 15 minutes before, nothing. Name popped up, celebrated with some family. I really hadn't talked to the Rays much at all prior to getting picked by them. So their area scout called me, talked to him, and yeah, ended up getting taken 18th round by the Rays.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you enjoyed that Jake Palomaki interview. He's an awesome guy, great interview. And stay tuned next week for part 2 when we break down his professional development and get to know him a little bit more, what he's like off the field. Thanks again. I'm Matt.
Yeah, I'm Ben, and
I'm Robbie. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys again next week.
yeah, we got a lot more coming, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.